Dear all, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the PhD PDF Scholarship Podcast. This podcast is an extension of the PhD PDF Scholarship Group. The group involves researchers currently doing PhD and postdoctorate at international universities and premium institutes. We also have scientists working at R&D labs who are willing to share their experience and keen to help aspirants to evolve them as researchers. In today's podcast, we will delve into the challenges that researchers face in their work and explore ways to overcome them. We are thrilled to have Dr. Prasoon Kumar, an assistant professor of biotechnology and medical engineering at NIT Rourkela with us to share his experience and insight on navigating research challenges. So now let's get to know more about Dr. Prasoon Kumar. Sir, if you can give a brief bio about yourself and your research, it would be helpful to our listeners. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Arun, for the invite. And I am basically a biotechnologist by my background. And then I did my master's in bioengineering, primarily expertise in the biomechanics and the tissue engineering. And then I did my PhD in the mechanical engineering, where I worked on the micro nanofluidic devices for biomedical applications. And after completing my PhD, I joined Asst Bangalore for doing my postdoc in the area of the materials engineering, where I worked on the organ-on-chip devices. And after a short tenure of 1 year postdoc, I joined NIT Ahmedabad as an assistant professor in the Department of Medical Devices. And 3 years back, I joined NIT Rourkela in the Department of Biotechnology and Medical Engineering as an assistant professor. My research primarily encompasses the design and development of the microfluidic devices, medical devices for healthcare applications. I worked at the interface of the design, chemical engineering, biotechnology, and the material science to develop innovative solutions for the challenges which our healthcare industry and the life science industry faces.
So to start off our podcast, first of all, I would like to know, what are the common sources of stress faced by researchers, and if you can tell how these kind of stresses can be managed effectively, then it would be very useful to our listeners.
Okay, so basically, if you see researchers enrolling in institutions in India, so when they enroll in the institution, they have then certain set of the expectations, right? I would be getting certain type of labs. I would be getting a certain supervisor who would mentor me throughout my journey. And eventually I would be able to publish certain publication, learn a lot, and then come out happily with a good job in my hand. And that is the typical expectation of any PhD scholar who enters into any university or institution. However, if you look at the reality, it's not too simple as they have portrayed themselves. This I am saying from my experience, because when I did my MTech, I had a good experience during the MTech, and there I found that if I work hard, I would be able to publish a good publications and get a postdoc in the future. And doing a PhD from the IIT Bombay would be definitely add a value to me. Now, I could not see the lot of other challenges or the hurdles which may a PhD scholar come, because it was a narrow mind, means a very limited thinking. We do not delve into the PhD with a lot of deliberations on different aspects. Now, a person has their expectations and they want that their expectations should be met. Now, in the PhD, majority of the things are not directly related to the person themselves. Now, for example, a person lands up in a lab, so that lab environment is not under the control of a person. Now, a student, when joins a particular professor, the mindset, the value system, the approach of interaction, the way of interactions. The PhD scholar cannot control their supervisor or the mentor. Now, he or she also expect to work in the lab with the different variety of the people. So I did my PhD, if you from the IIT Bombay, and there in the lab, there were people from the North India, South India, even Maharashtra. That there is a cultural and the way they think, way they talk, there is a different, right? So unless you are accommodate to the environment, that also poses the challenge. Now these are those challenges which a individual is unable to control or change, right? But what they can control or change is their response to these challenges. Now, many a times accommodating to these different environment based on their expectation, so they have to balance their expectation and whatever the environment they get into, first of all. Now, so and they have to be constantly in the mode of a change. So unless they accommodate to whatever the challenge which is coming from the lab environment, the resource, the supervisor, they have to accommodate and retain themselves. So it's a more of an inward journey, which I always say during the PhD, that you want to make yourself adaptable to the situation. Now, this is the one stress a student, a scholar always faces because of the self-expectation. And if they are more better adaptable, they do not get much stressed. But if they are part, they are tend to get stressed because of their self-expectations. Now, other thing which comes as a stress is the environmental stress. Now, environmental stress is something like so every institution or every department have certain policies related to the, like they would be having number of the exams every 6 months to evaluate what is the progress, or supervisor would be too much demanding that you should be publishing the certain result, you should come up with the certain result. So when I was doing my PhD, I was not getting much of the, means I was doing PhD in the mechanical engineering. Now, because of the lack of the background, and my supervisor expectation was that every week I should have some results. Now, being a biotechnologist or being in the bioengineering domain, if you get to interact with these people who work in the life sciences and the biotechnology, they generally have a strong thought that the results won't come too easily, right? It's not the weekly results or something like that. You are not doing something which is very routine or mundane one. So being my training in the biotechnology and bioengineering, I used to take a lot of time to come up with some thought, and then I would like to here during the PhD, my supervisor expected me to give the results every week, and that was a very stressful situation for me. Now, at the same time, whatever the lab environment is there, the people try to, so if supervisors imposes a competitive culture in the resource, same infrastructure, and come up with something so that they can please their supervisor or portray themselves or paint themselves a better picture in front of the supervisor. And now this creates another barrier. So handling the people is another challenge. The person was already handling the supervisor because of its mindset. And the third thing is that because of this created politics. So the person do not feel, research scholar do not feel comfortable enough to be expressive. And that is the sole reason any research scholar join a lab, because they want to feel free from within and express themselves and explore the unknown territories. Now, under those constrained environment, they further feel stressed because they are unable to open up their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions. And now, as the work burden is there and they are managing the politics of the lab and the expectation of the supervisor, they undergo another type of the stress of managing the people, which they were never ever thought of before, because they thought that if they would work, in my case, I thought that I had done a very good work in my MTech. I should just get the resources and I can do all the work. But later I realized that it's not the work which is important, it's the supervisor and the lab environment which is important, which facilitates you to do some work, any meaningful work. So I used to get a lot of the stress because of these reasons. Every now and then I would try to manage the, okay, where should I get my chemicals, where should I get my instrument booked for doing the experiment. Meanwhile, I have to produce my result with the expectation of my guides. And in all these situations, primarily the lab environment and how each individual is treated is pretty bad. So this creates a very suffocating, toxic environment, which person feel always stressed. So if you are unable to express your feelings, thoughts, your ideas, you will feel stressed. So that is the environmental stress a person comes. Then third type of stress is the societal stress. Now in India, if sorry guys, I am talking much about the India because my experience has been primarily related to the Indian institution. Third is the societal stress. Now everybody who went into the PhD in the top tier institution, there are a lot of expectations from the society, and only one expectation: he is going to do PhD from the IIT, ISC, ISER, then he should be getting 20 lakh, 30 lakh package after the just coming out. Now a person himself or herself is struggling in the lab to do at least a single experiment or even to express their thoughts. They are not feeling free enough. And now the society is thinking, when are you getting a job, beta? How much time will it take to complete your PhD? You didn't even know that your experiments would be completed. Forget about the PhD. And then lot of expectations from your families, your friend circle, and even your parents do keep asking when it is going to be complete. And many a time, see, you can ignore your relatives or society, but it's very difficult to cope up with the parents' expectations. And that puts a lot of pressure or the stress on the individual, that how you should work so that they can at least meet their parents' expectations, their brothers, their sisters, their spouse expectations. And that is the another societal expectations. And the third stress, which fourth stress, which I feel think that many a times students are, see, PhD journey, it is full of unknowns, full of risk. Now you need, if you are navigating into a jungle where there is no way, you need at least freedom to think. You need at least freedom to take decisions. And many a times, if you are unable to take those decisions, this leads to that you are not looking to herself. And many a times when others take the decision and anything goes wrong, so let's suppose there was one friend of mine who was doing PhD, and every time in the lab meeting he used to say that, okay, these are the results, and my supervisor used to say, what results you have got? You have got nothing. And in that process he lost his self-confidence. So he started following whatever the supervisor was telling. And while attending the meeting, I also knew that whatever my supervisor, that is not going to work. See, you have explained. I know that a person joining a lab may not be intellectually sound, but many a times research we follow through the instinct and your gut feelings. Okay, let's try this one. I'm not saying that you know each and every bit of it, but from the within you feel like, let's try this one. Now that a friend of mine who was working in my lab, he used to say something, my supervisor won't listen, and he used to suggest something else to my friend, and every time he used to come up with the again failure. Now over the period for 3-4 months continuously, as we all knew that his suggestion is not going to work, and we used to tell my friend that don't follow him, leave him. Anyway, he is going to scold you, even if he is going to blame you, who cares? And he used to blame me also, but I never cared. So every day I had a tussle with my supervisor. Every day, every week, every meeting, and I will talk about whatever happened due to the stresses, but every day this was the struggle. Now, after 6 months, 1 year time, my friend didn't have any results because of the only following the supervisor. Now, at the end of the meeting, when it was concluded that he hasn't worked for a year, and then he was expelled out of the PhD, giving a master's degree only. Now this sort of the grave situation, and now when I was flipping through one of his old notebooks, I found that I am highly stressed. He used to write these things. Please help me. But I don't know, he had never asked for any sort of the help. But I believe that he has been under stress for a long period of the time. And these all fears of failure, what the supervisor will think, what if the results won't come, will I get the job, what will happen? So different type of all these fears surmounts on a student, and they feel stressed. So I generally feel these are the typical reasons and the causes of the stress in the academic setting where research or scholar faces.
Okay, sir. So we have one follow-up question adding to the stress of students. How can researchers cope with and address the toxicity in academic environments? And what can be done to promote a more positive and supportive culture?
Okay, so this thing is a very important. One need to understand from where this stress is coming from. So why I am saying is that, see, out of the 4 stresses I talked about, there the one stress is related, if you club it, one is coming from the environment, and one stress is coming from the self expectations or self partial knowledge. Now let's talk about the environmental stress. Now if you look at the university setting, now being as an assistant professor, I realized that there is a lot of pressure on the faculty. Now the government has introduced a different type of the ranking system, and all these ranking systems are basically pushing every stakeholders or every employee. So let's talk from the faculty perspective, what is going on their mind, and then we will be able to understand why the stress is happening even. So this all faculties are being asked to publish more and the more, file more and the more patent, do more and the more of the research, right, from the university. Now second thing is that when they see their peers also publish, and their friend circle. So let's suppose I am a faculty in the NIT Rourkela, I see one of my friend is faculty in the IIT Delhi, and he is able to publish, so it's a peer pressure also. So self-pressure as well the pressure from the institutions forces a faculty to do research in a much accelerated way. Now we all know that if any breakthroughs, any good research, anybody, it takes time, and history is the witness to it. So it cannot be that every week you get one result and the next week you write a paper and third week you get a published result. I mean published paper. It won't happen, and if it happens, then it is setting a wrong trend. Now because of this pressure on the faculty, he or she always feels that what is there in their hand. So they always see their research scholar as a resource pool. And now they fail to understand that research, the output is not based on the number or the amount of work. It's the quality of work which matters a lot. So then they start pressurizing their students for being more productive, so that first their career can enhance, they can stand within their peers, and third, they are able to meet the expectations of their different stakeholders and the universities, right? So they are pressurized, that I understand. Okay. Now the second thing is that when they own a lab, they believe that they are the king of that lab, which is not wrong. And all the subjects, sorry to say subjects, all the scholars are just their slaves, I would say. And they give every little task to them and believe that they own the lab, they brought the funding, so their work is being done, and they start expecting from the students. Now the students and the scholars, they are less experienced. What is they are having? They are having only the energy, they are having the enthusiasm, they are having the zeal to learn something, and they are having the passion. They are not having knowledge, they are not having the experience. And this is the two things they expect from their supervisor initially, and later they can build on them. Now these supervisors generally tend to pressurize their students. So in the process, when the student, like in my case, I joined from the bioengineering to the mechanical engineering, And literally saying in the 3 to 4 hour of the meeting, I used to follow only the 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And the rest, all the words and the statements were just alien to me. So I was just sitting in a Chinese group, you can say, knowing only English and Hindi. And this was a very weird situation. At the end of the day, I used to nod, yeah, I understood, yeah. I mean, I can't say. So then my supervisor said that you can ask some questions. And then I started asking very basic questions related to mechanical engineering. So he said, oh, you don't know this. You should better learn, come and prepared for it. Go and look for the books. So when I was not asking questions, he said, you should all ask questions. When I asked questions, so when a person is always not clear about the intentions, this also creates stress, right? So now under all these conditions, majority of the time, students who are stressed because they are having the lot of lack of communication with the group as well as the supervisor. So let's tackle the environmental stress, how it is. So if the supervisor is not supportive enough, let's imagine a situation, and toxic environment is created because of the competition. First of all, you need to train yourself. You are not here for the competition. Let me tell you, every student's PhD journey is different. You cannot compete. Problem definition is different. Resource challenges would be the different. How to approach the problem would be different. And if you are not getting a support, being competitive won't help you. It will further add. So you have to train yourself from internally. You have to make yourself believe that you are not here to compete. You are here to collaborate and do something good work. So that is the self-training person has to do, so that they can come out of this competitive mode and the stress due to that competition, first of all. Now, the second thing, they need to communicate upfront with their lab members as well as the supervisors. Now, many a times I have seen young researchers who enters into a lab, and see, all the researchers are basically, all not, at least 90% I would say, coming from the middle class and the lower middle class, because majority of the people who pursue the research are those only, which I have observed. I may be wrong. So they have a very humble background, and they know to everything what is being asked in the lab. So if their supervisor said, can you do it? They are ready to, okay, sir, I will do it. Their senior asked, can you do it? So now they are being overburdened. And their inability to communicate no, that I can't do it, I will find it challenging. So you have to communicate in a way that you do not hurt the ego or of the supervisor or the senior. At the same time, your message is coming straight across. So what I used to say some of the time, I used to say that I don't know things, but if somebody can help me, I can learn it. Now, this is, I would say, this is no only to any statement. I don't know the things. Then if you give me, you would be in soup, because I won't be doing in the correct way. But if the condition is that if you provide me that training and that support, I would be able to do it. So onus is on the another person. So this is the second tool a person should adapt, how to say no for the number of the task in the lab. Now, this will minimize the expectations, first of all. Second, it will set a barrier between you and seniors or the supervisor, that you may not be vulnerable or exploited in a way. Now, many a times the students feel the burnt out. So this burnt out also can be minimized with this no be approached. So you should be always telling that you can learn the things, but it will take time. Are you up for it? Then you give the job to me. If you are not, then find out some other person. And third thing which a person can do is, if the lab is highly toxic, they need to find out some people in the lab whom they find at least 60, 70, 80% mindset matching. Now, they need to spend a lot of the time with themselves, because spending on the light time with those people who thinks you about a negative, that think only you as a resource, not as a person, generally lowers the self-confidence of a person. So you have to spend time with those people. Now, spending time means spending good time, a positive thinking time, a positive discussion time. So these three things at least person can take to cope up the environmental challenge or toxicity. Apart from that, self-expectation based stresses can be minimized by training your mindset only. So if you start training your mindset, like I would be going for the competitive, collaborative mode rather than the competitive mode, right? And it's not too easy, guys. Everybody is hungry for this. What I have seen in the academia, hungry for the credits. Now I don't know if you share the credit, what will happen, but they feel like there's something great is going to happen if you share your credits. And every time the people would try to steal the credit. It also has happened in my career during my PhD postdoc with the different students. So that also should not happen, because the later you will realize that you have been used and you have been to be credited, and this brings a lot of negative feelings inside you. So first of all, you have to train yourself. You have to understand with whom and how you should interact or communicate with the persons. Then how you should manage your resources in the lab to cope up with these things. And this all starts with the training your mindset, spending the positive time, positive talk with yourself. See, whatever with the failures you would be facing in the lab, you have to have a positive talk with yourself when you leave the lab. If the lab is too toxic environment, do not spend too much of the time in the lab. I would say spend the time just enough to do your work, come out of the lab, spend time in the canteen, man. But many a time supervisor expect that you should spend about 10 hours in the lab. I don't know what to do. But it's one of the expectations. So in this situation, plug in the earphone and keep quiet at one place, and just engrossed in your thoughts, or in your, one should start reading books that gives the different perspective. Okay. And one more thing they can do is see, if a person is stressed and they know that it is stressed, many times they are unable to share their thoughts and the feelings with the others. And that is the major challenge when they keep going down and down and down in the stress zone, and they finally develop the depression or the suicidal tendencies and all those things. Now that is the point where the student do not feel. Yesterday only, to share, yesterday only I came to one of research scholar in my department only, and she came and said that, sir, I don't feel coming to the lab. And when I asked the supervisor, he says that the student do not come to the lab. Now, supervisor is also correct. Student do not come to the lab. But the student is also correct, my dear. Because he is saying that I am not feeling good to come in the lab. Now, the responsibility that why the student is feeling the way. Because when a person joins a PhD lab, they do not feel that they should not go to the lab. They would be happy to go to the lab. But something is happening in the lab. And that is the role of a leader or the supervisor to know what is happening in the lab. And then she came that I don't want to be in the lab because of I am feeling stressed. I do not feel good in the company of the people. They do not reciprocate in the way I expect, and a lot of the challenges are coming. Now, in all those conditions, a student is not feeling motivated enough. Then why he or she would come in the lab? So you have to, first of all, you should, in those situations who are already stressed, they should start writing, journaling their thoughts and feelings. Because once you are in that mode, there is a greater tendency that you will get into the depression or suicides and all those negative tendencies and the mental disorders. So you should start writing. Then you should do lots of self-talk, positive self-talks. So self-talk won't come because in those situations, all the negative thoughts would be coming in. Now, what you can do, you can pause your breath for a while, take a pen, take a notebook, write it that, okay, these are the negative thoughts I am coming. I would, means you have to reiterate that I have to overcome for 10-20 seconds. And then suddenly you allow some positive thoughts to come, or you start deliberately thinking, and then spend some time with the positive thoughts. So the more you self-talk in the positive mode, it would help you apart from the writing. And the third thing is that one should have certain hobbies. That is also a temporary way of suspension of all the stresses and all those things. If you have a hobby, if you pursue something, you will feel engaged and engrossed in it. And many a times it's seen that the people who do not feel like coming to the lab, do not feel passionate about the work which they earlier used to have, it's because they have generally lost the interest and the passion in their life, as well as the whatever they used to do. So in my case, when I was stressed, I never felt that. Once I told my supervisor that I am not motivated enough to come to the lab. Now in the IITs, it's a very red flag. Let me tell you, I think Ravis can correlate. So if you tell you're not motivated enough, now the supervisor are on the red alert. Because anytime this person can commit suicide and all the blame is going to come. Now, he did not called, mailed or messaged me for 2-3 days. So he wanted that I should spend my time with myself. As long as I started getting motivated again. So after 3 days, when I came to the lab and I was working alone, he said, is everything fine? Only, yeah, now it's okay. I am motivated again. So if you are not motivated, I think a student should straight away tell to their supervisor also that I am not feeling motivated enough to work. Many a times, one of my co-supervisor used to say, you are being paid, I don't care. They say that you are being paid to do the research, then why you are not motivated enough? I say, I don't care about your money. If I am not feeling good, if I am feeling stressed, why I am doing the PhD? See, any person who is capable of doing PhD, I believe that they are capable of doing any other job on this planet. So only thing, because they have come over here, because they felt passionate about, they felt motivated enough to do something different, more challenging. So they are not come for the money. So I used to always say, you keep your money with yours, I don't care. And now this sort of the communication is also sometimes needed with the supervisor, that they should understand that they are dealing with the humans, they are not dealing with some resource like equipments. So they should feel, and at least an IITs, whatever call I have got for the last 1 year, I used to always tell, use this tool. Tell them, I am not feeling motivated enough, and then you will see their reaction. Then they would be coming towards you. Earlier you were going towards them, they will start coming. Once you give and switch off your phone and the mobile phone and the email, then see what would happen in the entire department, institute. So I am not saying that use these sort of the extreme measures, but sometimes you need to convey that you are not motivated enough. So communication is also an important tool to overcome these stresses. And finally, one should have some good friends to share your thoughts and the feelings. See, fortunately, I believe that a lot of people share a lot of the negative things, and I can absorb them without getting affected. Now, friends are those people who can absorb a lot of the negativity without getting affected. But if you share the same challenges, problems with your parents, I mean, they will get disturbed, guys. Right? That's why I say you should always cultivate a very good friendship with somebody whom you can share your thoughts and feeling in the tough times. And PhD, you are bound to enter into some or other day, some tough times. So this is all about, I can say, how you can cope up and what are the sources of the stresses.
I think Dinesh can go ahead.
Yeah, it was a very detailed discussion with them, sharing a lot of personal experiences and useful advices to the students as well. It's very informative. And yeah, when you mentioned about the student supervisor relationship, I would like to, I remember the words I was hearing when I was doing my PhD. I was hearing from my PhD supervisor as well. Like, he used to say that when, PhD by definition, it's more like you are pushing the scientific boundary. That also means that you know the things better than anybody in the world by when you are finishing a PhD. So you are indeed taking the help and support from your supervisor when you are taking the journey. But at some point, then you end up, because you are pushing the boundary, that means you know the things better at some point. So that's also, it's very so this kind of you need to understand also to have the self-confidence more, right, for students, so that kind of gives you the confidence that okay, I did that and I'm pushing the boundary, so I know that better, right? So so I felt like to add this here, and I think many of you would agree as well.
Definitely. So my postdoc supervisor used to say that some or other day, PhD scholars is going to gain the knowledge and the experience in that field in which they are researching much ahead of their supervisor. And he used to say that when I feel that my students has went beyond a certain point where they are able to now teach and mentor us on their specialized topic, it's time to them to graduate.
Exactly.
So I really liked that concept from my postdoc supervisor, and I still try to instill thoughts in me so that I can guide my students in a better way.
Yeah. So it was a very wonderful discussion, and so thank you for the great insights. And along these directions, right? So we talked about self expectations to society expectations and all this. So now, particularly, my next question is around that as well. What are some strategies that you think achieving the work-life balance, right? As a researcher, and how can personal and professional goals can be integrated effectively? If you have any advices, that would be great as well to share with the audience.
Okay. Work-life balance is one of the important challenge in the research, guys. Let me give my personal opinion. You all can differ from it. I personally feel that the research is a field where life itself is a research. And I do not see that you can shut off at 5 o'clock your research and then come back at 9 o'clock in the next morning to do your research. And that sort of the research is not a research of passion. I would say that those are the research. It's a job for me, something like. And I never felt in my entire career when I started my master's. So for the at least 14 years, time has crossed till I did my master's. I never felt that, okay, I can suspend my work at 5 o'clock in the evening and then come back at 9 o'clock to do. So for me, the work-life balance do not exist. It's integrated in the life itself. Now, when I see many researchers, passionate researchers, for them, research is not only about their job. And I also feel that research can't be a job. It's an ongoing journey where you try to solve a particular piece of problem. Now, you are solving a particular piece of problem because you feel that if this problem is being solved, some way it may help the society, some way it may push the boundaries of your understanding about this universe, some way it can generate those knowledge which can, civilizations can take it further. So all those feelings are there. And any problem which you are solving, it's not a trivial unless you are passionate about it. So this problem is always existing inside you, and you are just finding a place to solve a particular piece of problem during a PhD. Now, in this process, you have joined a PhD or a postdoc to get yourself trained how to solve a problem, right? You think that there should be some problem and you should solve that problem, and whatever the outcome, you want to make some contribution to the knowledge space or the technology available for the civilization. So you join the PhD and the postdoc not to have a work-life balance as such. What I always feel, you join there to learn something how you can solve. Now the problem is which you are solving will exist with you all the time. Now the best of the inventions or the discoveries, if you look at in the history, they have occurred not only in the lab. Like benzene structure was, it said that it's been discovered when the person was sleeping the dream. Even the alpha helix structure was discovered in the dream. So then the theory of relativity came when the person was drafting the patent in the patent office by Albert Einstein. So a lot of the new innovations, new science has come up when the person will literally living those problems. So it's not that they suspended for the temporary and then they came back Suspension happens automatically. Even the taking of the problem also happens automatically. So now, in that case, the work-life balance is in terms of the problem thinking and being with the problem, I don't see there should be a work-life balance. It should be, work should be such that people should not feel that it is a work. It is a joy of doing the learning process itself. Right? Now, if you are joyful in coming to the lab, engaging with the discussion, doing some experiments, you are going back, I don't see that you will tell that I have worked for 12 hours. You will feel that I have enjoyed over there. Now I am physically and mentally tired. I just want to rejuvenate my body and mind. My soul is still with the problem. Right? So you are just living with the problem and you want that environment to be there. Right? And I think all of you are researchers, and you all would agree that if such environment is there where you don't feel that you have worked, you literally enjoyed the process of learning, I don't say you would say that, okay, I'm very stressed, man, now I need to get rejuvenated, or I want a break. The break you want only because of the physical and the mental strain you are going through. But even if you are completely exhausted, the problem is still reverberating in your brain, and you are still thinking and thinking of some solutions could come up. I see a light at the end of this tunnel, and I should pursue it. Now, the problem happens of the work-life balance when the passion turns into really a work. For example, you are working in the lab, and there is a lot of expectation to do this, that, and you are just coping with the lot of the expectation, and each work you are not feeling passionate about of doing. In that case, you want that the work should finish at 5 o'clock, and then I should spend some time with myself or with my hobbies, so that I can rejuvenate myself, so that next day I can come and complete those work. So for me, the work-life balance should not be there, but environment should be such that you always feel passionate about. See, learning environment, I don't know about the job, guys. I am still being an assistant professor here. So it's not that I come every day at 9 o'clock and do my work. And whenever I don't feel passionate about the teaching also, I say to the student, okay, I haven't prepared, guys, and I don't feel like teaching, because teaching itself is a transfer of the knowledge with the same enthusiasm and energy to the students. Now, every job should be such that you feel good about it. You feel passionate about it. And if that is the case, the work-life balance need not be there, and still you would be happy, you would be healthy. But when the work-life balance is beyond your passion and a lot of the stressful condition is there, the environment is not good enough, then you indeed feel the need for the balance. Now, in those conditions, if you are working, I would suggest that you should define your boundaries of what is the time from which you will be going to work over there, and what is the time you are going to come out of the work. And that time should be strict, and you can say your incapability. See, many a times the research scholars fear of saying their incapabilities to the supervisor. There could be two reasons. One is that if they say their incapability to the supervisor, what she would think, and he or she may not give some opportunities which you may be willing to take or you would like to have. Now, that is the one thing. Second, you don't say your incapabilities among your team member because you do not trust them, or you do not feel comfortable in sharing your incapabilities with everybody in the lab. So it's basically not because of you. See, any person who has joined the PhD or a postdoc or a research fellow, they are incapable only in the research. That's why they have joined over there to learn the research and how it needs to be pursued, and then they can carry out this trait further. But when joining the lab, you still do not, if you are not still able to express what you don't know and get help for those things, do you think you would ever be able to evolve as a scientist? Because you are still living with your shortcomings. You are not overcoming your shortcomings. And let me tell you, research is a journey which I have experienced, that unless it's a more of a character strength, it's a less of a knowledge or whatever. So let's suppose Nirmal is working on the green steel making. I feel good about that he is working on the one of the challenging. Let me one day I feel that I should also work with the Nirmal, but Nirmal feels that, okay, this will add a new competition. I'm just giving a hypothetical situation. Okay, Prasoon will enter into the green steel making. Nirmal can also say that I want to learn the medical devices. So there should be open environment of the exchange, so that whatever you don't know, you overcome those challenges and uh, become a better version in that field. So right from the technical skill set, you can learn and express that you don't know, and somebody should be able to teach you. And character skills, which are also very important, like patience, perseverance, talking to people, dealing with the negativity, exploring the unknown, taking the risk. All these are the character strength. It's not that every scholars would be who are joining the PhD would be already having, which is the big misconception. It also need to be trained. So if you are getting these sort of the environment, then I don't see there is a work-life balance as such. But if you are not getting this sort of the environment, you should define certain things, the work hours. You should say what you can do, what cannot do. Maintain a very professional sort of the relationship and do what is only expected out of you. Don't exert yourself too much in the lab, because anyway the lab environment is not conducive for your intellectual or the personal professional growth. So have a minimum engagement in the lab. And moreover, if you working in the university or institute, you know that this is the minimum requirement you need to do and come out of the lab, right? And believe me, when I was doing my PhD, I did my PhD for the, I think, 5.5 years long, and I got my degree in the 7 year. So it was not a very good experience. So I thought of, let's complete the degree with the minimum requirement, and every university or institute have their own minimum requirement. Fulfill those requirements, maintaining your work and the life. And the life means health is a very important, guys. So you should, every PhD scholar, I request as well as advise that you should spend at least 1 hour on your health. No matter what comes, no matter your paper get rejected, no matter you do not get the grant, but the health is the most important thing, because this health is the one which you can take it after the PhD. And if anything has not happened in your life, you can come back with that health. But if your health get degraded, for instance, my personal experience is that during my PhD, I was under stress, and due to the stress, I used to have a multiple joint stiffness. Now, because of the multiple joint stiffness, I was unable to wake up in the morning. And even if mentally I wake up, it used to take 4 to 5 hours to get out of the bed, because all my joints are not moving. So I used to literally warm up by slightly moving, because slight movement also used to cause a lot of excruciating pain. Now, after 4 and 5 hours, I used to land up on the land for the walking. And then after 2-3 hours of the morning chorus, I used to visit the lab at 3 o'clock. So getting up at 8 o'clock, I used to visit. So literally I was in the work only, I would say, from the 8 a.m. But I was just preparing that I should feel that energy and the enthusiasm to reach. Now, because of this, my health conditions have deteriorated a lot. Like initial signs of the health condition is that your bowel movement decreases, you get the frequent migraines, frequent headache, heaviness in the head, you get palpitations because of the some sort events, your heartbeat increases, your breath pattern changes. And these all are the symptoms, guys. So if anyone is facing, you should closely observe these symptoms. And many a times, for my case, it was the multiple joint stiffness. Some people I have come across, they say that they have developed autoimmune disease. Some people say that they have developed a permanent migraine. Some people say that they have developed other type of the diseases which you cannot even imply. Thing is that when you are stressed, your the cortisol is continuously released in the blood, and if the cortisol is released in the blood, your immunity get compromised, and then you are much more vulnerable to the different type of the internal as well as the external diseases. Internal means like autoimmune and all those are the internal, and external means the pathogenic based. Now, these all things are very important to understand. So if these things are coming to you, then you should think of a way that, okay, have minimum engagement in the lab, have ability to deny certain things, come out of the lab with the minimum engagement, and restart your journey afterwards. And this is the time you should always maintain your work-life balance, but spend some time. But if everything is good and you are only passionate about everything and the lab is too conducive, there is no need of the work-life balance, I would say. Because in my postdoc, in my job, and in my present job, so at least these three places, I never maintained the work-life balance. I used to work at 3 a.m. I used to go to the lab 11 a.m. I used to work in the evening, night. It doesn't matter for me. I always enjoy that process.